It seems like at some point the more fashionable among us tend to gravitate towards Japanese fashion. It seems like there's something about the allure of foreign and inaccessible clothes that kind of gives off tasteful or exclusive. And of course, the price definitely mirrors that, as tasteful and exclusive usually translates to expensive. With Japanese fashion in the West, we see a lot of graphic tees, we see a lot of blue jeans, but that's really just the surface level. Even still, you sort of have to wonder, don't we have the same thing sort of in the West? Why is the Japanese version a little bit more desired? What is it that gives off that sort of tasteful and alluring sort of draw to these clothes? Is it worth the price tag? We're going to get into that today, as I've actually picked up a few things from Japanese brands over the years and recently, and I'd like to explore that a little bit closer. Now, I'll go ahead and admit that a lot of the pricing is probably due to importation. So importation costs pretty much translate to high shipping costs. If you've ever shipped something out of the country, like to Hawaii or whatever, then you'll notice that it does go up by quite a bit. That being said, shipping something from Japan to the United States also costs a little bit more. It's essentially just a bulk buy, intercontinental shipping upcharge. So of course the retailers and stockists that carry the brands from Japan, they get charged more. And by the end of the day, once it trickles down to us, of course we're paying a bit of a premium. And I'll say this, just to be fair, a lot of the brands that we're paying a lot more money for here tend to be a bit cheaper in Japan, albeit above that consumer level, like average price point. So it's still getting into the more mid-tier or designer price ranges, but you kind of get a little bit more out of what you're paying for, and we'll get into that in our next topic. So what is this bang for your buck that you're getting more so than the American counterpart with its clothes? Well, I'll tell you just off the bat, to recap what we've already said, exclusivity and quality is just going to cost bread. But typically when you get something from a Japanese brand, it should be no secret at this point that you're going to get a little bit of a bump in detail and craftsmanship. I think this kind of like goes to a more cultural approach that they have to clothing in general, or pretty much just anything they do, whether it's martial arts, clothing, construction, technology. I guess the Japanese culture is centered around placing value on doing things the proper way, all the way to completion, the best way you can. Now obviously over time this is going to create a bit of a style or a stylistic way of doing something, and that kind of translates into whatever the product is. You don't see a lot of fast fashion or mass manufactured stuff coming from Japan. I mean, they have it, don't get me wrong, there's the Uniqlos and whatnot. Now from the United States standpoint, you know about a lot of fast fashion brands, H&M and whatnot. The West does have like artisan level craftsmanship. The West does have a set of skilled designers. We have Rick Owens and Matthew Williams from Alix and stuff like that, or Jerry Lorenzo. The UK has Savile Row in like a tailoring district and whatnot. Spain is known for their shoes and stuff like that. Italy is a great place to get leather. But the Japanese culture, I think, is just a bit more centered around doing something in a very specific way. And if you really want to think about it, it's kind of like akin to perfectionism in a sort of a way. It's a bit more detail to dive into, but I'll refer you to Reggie Casual's channel, The Casual. They probably already have videos about that, many of them probably. But in a nutshell, essentially where America diverged into sort of just making profit, outsourcing and all that, Japan kind of stayed more traditional with their approach, especially with clothing. There's probably a lot of stories online about how Japan bought up a bunch of the old Levi's equipment, the looms and mill equipment that the factories in the United States had. Once they kind of became phased out due to them being slow and just a little less efficient, Japan bought them because they have a more of a appreciation for the ways that we used to do things. Old America is like a golden age, like reference point for Japan a lot of the times. And of course, Japan has its fast fashion like Uniqlo, for example, but many fast fashion brands, or if you want to even call them fast fashion brands, for example, like I said, Uniqlo. If you want to take it Uniqlo as an example of a Japanese fast fashion brand, you'll notice that Uniqlo and brands like it don't tend to take the approach that H&M or Zara or Topman usually take. You can just look at H&M's collections year by year. Outside of their designer collaborations with like a Margiela or a Kenzo or whatever, you'll notice that they tend to hop on a trend, produce a similar enough but not exactly the same copy of it, and then they push it out to the masses. It's usually horrible quality, nearly falling apart unless it's a t-shirt or something, but even those are pretty bad. I know from my own experience purchasing those items that I have not kept really any of those items because of that. Not only are they bad quality, but the styles and the trends that they're trying to jump on tend to kind of fade away as we're in the era of like micro chins. Things are just, did I say micro chins? Micro trends. To avoid falling into that trap, Uniqlo usually produces a timeless array of clothing, and usually it doesn't feature very much branding at all except for on the tags. And I would say that the quality for the price is actually really good in comparison to other things like H&M. Uniqlo will charge you a slight increase in price, but I think you're gonna get a much better quality garment. They've got graphics. They do actually pretty interesting things with their cottons. There's like cotton that is reminiscent of loop wheel, or like the same stuff that the Human Made t-shirts are made of from Nigo. It may even be pretty similar, if not the same, maybe just a different grade of cotton. But from first-hand experience touching and feeling the clothes, having some of them, I know that I would probably put my money into Uniqlo or any fast fashion brand from Japan before I put my money into a Western fast fashion brand. Last but not least, you have the Japanese approach to style and clothing, as well as craftsmanship overall. You'll notice before I said that they kind of stay within one lane until they perfect something. It's just a sort of a cultural thing. They do something again and again and again until they damn near get it perfect. Because of that approach, you'll probably see something similar in people's personal style, meaning that you'll see someone rock Supreme, or maybe a rocker punk style, or if it's not Supreme, it's a skater style. They'll keep refining it, and eventually you'll see this guy walking down the street and you go, man, that style looks so effortless and cool, not knowing that he spent a decade trying to perfect the style. In the West, we tend to jump around a little bit more. A lot of brands become really cool for like a day, 3 days, 4 days, a month, a year. There's just completely random amounts of time where stuff is like cool and popping. You have your more long-lasting brands and trends, but eventually I feel like people kind of jump off of that and grab something else. If you remember Hood By Air, how popular Hood By Air was, it's kind of crazy how they kind of fell off, especially after like one A$AP Rocky diss. I'm not saying that's the only thing that threw them off, but man, it's crazy like how they jumped up in popularity. Everyone wanted their stuff. People were paying thousands of dollars for it, and then the next like week or month after it kind of dipped, it kind of just stayed dead, which is crazy. They officially just died. You don't see that as much in Japan, at least from a Western standpoint. Now, I don't live there, so I don't really know, but at least from what I see, it tends to be the case that a brand has a cult following or fan base. And again, the fans of said brands kind of just want the same thing in different variants. They want to keep progressing in a style, or they'll just completely move on to something else. But on the side of the brand, the producers of said clothing, Again, they're able to keep on perfecting a certain look or style and slowly but surely include new elements of said style into their brand. So every time you see a brand do something different in Japan, it's probably the case that they've been playing around that idea for years and years before they actually put it into full-fledged production. On the other hand, American brands are more willing just to try something, and if it doesn't stick, they put it on sale, sell it, and then that's it. Now, that being said, I feel like it would be kind of strange for me to sit here and talk about how great all these brands are or how great Japanese fashion is overall without actually having some first-hand experience. So I have done that already, and therefore I'm going to show you some of my favorite items that I've gotten from Japanese brands over the years. I think denim is a good place to start because normally if you think about Japanese fashion, at some point you're going to come across Japanese denim, which is some of the best in the world. And of course the pants and jeans they make from that denim are indeed the best, or some of the best in the world, I would say. So to start off, I'm going to show you my Sugarcane Okinawas. This brand of denim or pants or clothes, I guess they make all kinds of stuff. You can look on their website. They have everything from t-shirts and jackets to denim, of course. Their main focus, I believe, is probably making pants, like denim pants or jeans. I've been wanting a pair of Sugarcanes for a while. They're not exactly cheap, but I just kind of had to find a way to justify the purchase. Like this was a sort of special occasion sort of item. I would always recommend trying on any pair of bottoms or really anything that you can try on if you have that availability. But of course, if not, then definitely look at the measurements and compare them to what you already have. Since I live in a place where there's readily available denim or Japanese clothing just available for sale in a boutique setting, I was able to go ahead and try these on. I actually have them on right now, and I'll do a couple of B-roll shots. I'm sure you're watching that now. What I liked about these jeans is they're very interesting as far as texture. I was looking for texture, honestly, and I didn't want to just jump into cotton. I feel like I have a lot of cotton. That's the most abundant material. And although it's the cheapest, it kind of gets boring. So I was looking for something more like linen or wool, but since I did have a gap in my wardrobe as far as indigo blue jeans, I decided to go ahead and pick these up. Now, what makes these jeans texturally, is that a word? Texturally? What makes these jeans texturally interesting, I would say, is that they have this sort of uneven, slubby texture to them. You can kind of see the gradations and different colors of the yarn that they use to make this denim, and that's because of the materials that they used. Now again, I said I was looking for something that wasn't exactly cotton, and although these contain cotton, they're actually 50% cotton and 50% sugarcane fibers, which is very interesting. It's not something you see every day. It's a super unique way to approach denim. I don't see it outside of this brand, honestly. Now, there's a lot of stuff to go over, but I think I could save that for maybe like a raw denim specific video. You know, left hand, right hand looms and all that stuff like that, raw denim. But just to kind of give you like a nutshell like explanation of this is a pair of raw denim, which means they're untreated, they're not dried, or excuse me, they're not washed or treated outside of the dyeing process. They're just kind of as is. Again, there's a lot of stuff to go into, so let's move on to the other details of the jeans. One thing about raw denim is it is very stiff, but usually you want that because it'll develop its own sort of patina, and once you wash it, it gives you this crazy fading pattern. All the like old school movie stars like McQueen and all of that have a similar effect to their denim, and it's kind of just from wearing it. Any other time it's going to be faked and not authentic, so you kind of get a different effect. These actually, in comparison to most raw denim, fit pretty loose or pretty like roomy, comfortable. It's usually my expectation that it's going to be very uncomfortable to break these in, but these were not the case. If you can see it, I think inside the pocket there is a koi fish or an alligator. I'm not sure what animal this is, but the back pockets are lined with this this cloth. I don't know if it's cotton or whatever, but it's a cloth that's lining the inside of the pocket, which is cool. I wish I knew what the animal was they have on the design, but I assume it's a koi fish. On the other side of the pocket, or the other pocket in general, there is a hand-sewn design in like the sashiko style. Again, I actually have to do more research on what this symbol means, but it does look pretty sick. You'll notice also on the back there is a patch. Instead of leather, there's a snake skin, and it is actual genuine snake skin, although it has been painted over and glossed over to give it a more shiny appearance, and also probably to hold that red lettering that's on top. But over time, if you look on Google, you'll probably see images of the snakeskin paint kind of wear away. The actual texture of the snakeskin will be revealed. It is pretty cool because you do get to see the scales, and by that time your pants probably would have started to fade as well, which is also cool. So this is definitely something you can keep in your wardrobe for 10-20 years or more. Oh, actually I forgot about one thing. How could I forget this? This is actually a really cool detail, is the pockets on the inside have this sashiko stitch pattern on the inside, and they're also blue. You know what? I'm not going to tell you where to pick them up. I think you should just research yourself. That's half the fun. Second pair of pants, and my last pair of pants I'm going to do on this video. I think you guys have already seen these many times, even on this channel and outside this channel. So I'm not going to spend too much time, but my Issey Miyake en plissé pleated pants, actually made in the Philippines, but is a Japanese brand nonetheless by a Japanese designer, Issey Miyake. Rest in peace. He's featuring all over pleated effect all over the pants, from the top to the bottom, all like horizontal pleats, and they make for a really cool effect on the pants. You can wear these dressy, but you can also wear them toned down. Issey Miyake is known for his like innovation with technology and having very technology driven designs, and I think I've never really seen any other designer really use this heat press method to put pleats in this material, which is polyester by the way, and I've never seen a pair of pants that actually came close to looking like these or as good as these. Next we'll take a look at this graphic tee I got from St. Michael. If you don't know St. Michael, it's the guy from Ready Made and Callie Thornhill, and they kind of just bounce back emails and help each other design clothes across the ocean, which is pretty cool. It's a unique story, which is another thing about Japanese clothing I like, is always like a cool story behind it. But they focus on sort of recreation of vintage, and this is a great example of what I was saying earlier. They kind of picked a lane and stuck with it. Pretty much they try and recreate whatever it is they're referencing to a T and making it exact. Oftentimes it becomes much better than the original product in terms of quality, fit, or whatever and what have you. There's also a lot of fading patterns in here, and I think they've done really good jobs on like 90% of the things that I see from them that are faded, because a lot of times it's easy to get that kind of fucked up and it looks unnatural. But this t-shirt actually looks like someone's sweat in it, and it broke down from the enzymes in people's sweat over 20 years, even though I bought it as a brand new product. The graphics are usually some sort of cross between referencing religion, usually Christianity, and also a old band or like some sort of like music group. This of course references Nine Inch Nails and their spiral sort of graphic on their album cover. On the back it says Far Away from Heaven, on the front it says Saint Holy Saint. Now again, it's a reference to both religion and a band. Last thing I want to show you with this tee is even the tag is pretty sick, because it referenced the old Giant tags that a lot of band merch was printed on, especially American musician acts. Except this time, instead of saying Giant, of course, they have Saint in there and Michael, I think, at the bottom. This is a pretty cool touch, and I think that it kind of just shows you the level of craftsmanship and detail that most Japanese artists and designers are willing to put into their work to pay homage, respect, and make these things look pretty fucking sick. That being said, I'm gonna go ahead and close out the video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned a little bit about Japanese fashion. If you have any questions or maybe a suggestion for a type of video I can put out next, definitely leave that in the comment section, Instagram, or wherever. And if you're new to the channel, welcome to the channel. If you're returning, then welcome back. Have a nice day.